Every 5 seconds, somewhere on Earth, the ocean produces enough oxygen to fill a hot air balloon, and you just breathe some of it. But here's what nobody tells you: that oxygen didn't come from trees. It came from something you've never seen, never heard of, and couldn't spot even with a magnifying glass. Something floating right now in waters thousands of miles away, quietly keeping you alive. And the truly extraordinary part? This invisible partnership between you and the sea has been running for billions of years, long before humans existed, before continents formed their current shapes, before anything you'd recognize walked the earth. That breath you just took, it connects you to the deepest trenches, to glowing creatures in absolute darkness, to songs traveling 10,000 miles underwater, to volcanic vents where life itself might have begun. The ocean isn't out there. It's in here, in your blood, in your cells, in the very rhythm of your breathing. Tonight, you're going to discover something that will change how you see yourself forever. You are not separate from the ocean. You never have been. So take another breath, a slow one. Feel your body relax. Let the day's tensions dissolve. Because tonight isn't about remembering facts or staying alert. It's about drifting through a world that's been holding you up since the moment you were born. It's about discovering that the boundary between you and the sea is more imagined than real. Before we begin, if these explorations help you unwind, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps others find their way here too. Now, let's slip beneath the surface and discover what the ocean has been hiding. Let's start with that breath. Take another one right now. About half the oxygen in it, possibly more, came from the ocean. Not from the Amazon rainforest. Not from the boreal forests of Canada or Siberia. From the sea. According to NASA's ocean ecology research, marine organisms produce approximately 50% of Earth's oxygen. In some seasons and regions, that percentage climbs even higher. But this isn't coming from seaweed or kelp forests, though they contribute. It's coming from microscopic organisms called phytoplankton, drifting in the sunlit surface waters, invisible to the naked eye. These tiny beings use photosynthesis just like land plants do, converting sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water into energy while releasing oxygen as a byproduct. They're so small that millions could fit in a single drop of seawater. And yet together, they outproduce every tree, every grassland, every terrestrial ecosystem on the planet. But here's where the story takes its first remarkable turn. One species, discovered only in 1988, may be responsible for up to 20% of all oxygen on Earth. Its name is Prochlorococcus, and according to the Smithsonian Institution, this makes it possibly the most abundant photosynthetic organism on the planet. It's smaller than a red blood cell, completely invisible without a microscope. And yet 1 in every 5 breaths you take might owe itself to this microscopic marvel that most people will never know exists. Think about that for a moment. Right now, billions upon billions of these organisms are photosynthesizing across the world's oceans, dividing, multiplying, releasing oxygen that rises to the surface, enters the atmosphere, and travels on wind currents to wherever you happen to be. You and Prochlorococcus, separated by thousands of miles, locked in an ancient exchange. It breathes out. You breathe in. And here's an even more recent discovery that deepens this connection. In 2023, researchers at the University of California, San Diego's Scripps Institution of Oceanography published a study in Current Biology revealing the mechanism that makes this possible. They identified a proton-pumping enzyme called VHA that significantly enhances photosynthesis in phytoplankton. This single process accounts for between 7 and 25% of all oxygen produced in the ocean. When you include photosynthesis on land, this mechanism may generate up to 12% of Earth's entire oxygen supply. One enzyme, discovered just 2 years ago, responsible for more than 1 in every 10 breaths you take. But phytoplankton don't thrive everywhere. They need sunlight, which limits them to the ocean's upper layer, typically the top 200 meters. They also need nutrients: nitrogen, phosphorus, and critically, iron. A 2026 study from Rutgers University, published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, revealed that iron, arriving primarily as wind-blown dust from continents, is often the limiting factor in phytoplankton growth. Without enough iron, photosynthesis slows or stops entirely. The researchers warned that climate change may be altering ocean circulation in ways that could reduce iron delivery to some regions, potentially affecting both oxygen production and marine food webs. The invisible system that keeps us breathing is more delicate than most people realize. Where conditions align, where sunlight meets nutrients, where currents bring iron and upwelling brings deep water rich in minerals, phytoplankton populations explode into massive blooms visible from space. NASA satellites routinely capture these events, swirls of green, blue, and turquoise stretching hundreds of miles across the ocean surface. In spring, when sunlight strengthens and winter nutrients remain abundant, these blooms support entire ecosystems. Zooplankton feed on phytoplankton. Small fish eat zooplankton. Larger predators follow. The spring bloom is a gift that ripples through every level of ocean life. As you breathe slowly in and out right now, phytoplankton across all 3 major oceans are photosynthesizing, dividing, releasing oxygen molecules that will travel through currents, rise to the surface, enter the atmosphere, and perhaps one day find their way into your lungs. The ocean breathes, and so do you, together. Now imagine descending past the sunlit surface, past the twilight zone where the last rays of blue light fade, into total darkness. No glow from above, no stars, just absolute black in every direction, stretching for miles. Most people would expect this realm to be empty, silent, dead. But something astonishing happens here. The ocean begins to glow. According to a 2017 study published in Scientific Reports by the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, approximately 76% of all animals living in the water column between the surface and 4,000 meters deep can produce their own light. Read that again. 3 out of every 4 creatures in the deep sea glow. In the deepest waters, that number may approach 90%. Think about what this means. The deep ocean isn't dark at all. It's filled with living light. Bioluminescence, the production of light by living organisms through chemical reactions, is rare on land. We know fireflies, perhaps a few glowing fungi, but in the ocean, it's the norm. And according to research compiled by the Smithsonian Ocean Portal, this ability has evolved independently at least 40 times across different branches of life. 40 times. Nature discovered this solution over and over, from jellyfish to squid to fish to bacteria, because in darkness, light is power. The chemistry is beautifully elegant. Most bioluminescent organisms use a light-producing molecule called luciferin. When luciferin reacts with oxygen, it releases energy as visible light. An enzyme called luciferase speeds this reaction. The result? Cold light, produced without heat, entirely controlled by biology. But why do so many creatures glow? The answers are as diverse as the organisms themselves, each one revealing a different evolutionary strategy for survival in eternal darkness. Some use light as a lure. The anglerfish is perhaps the most famous example. That nightmarish creature from deep sea documentaries. Its bulbous body and enormous jaws. But look closer at that glowing bulb dangling in front of its face. That's called an esca, and it contains bioluminescent bacteria living in a mutually beneficial relationship with the fish. The anglerfish provides the bacteria with shelter and nutrients. The bacteria provide light. When a curious, smaller fish approaches what appears to be a tiny glowing meal floating temptingly in the darkness, the anglerfish strikes with horrifying speed. But here's a detail that makes this even more remarkable. Different species of anglerfish host different species of bacteria, and each produces slightly different wavelengths of light. This suggests a long coevolutionary history between these organisms, each shaping the other across millions of years. Others use light for camouflage through a deceptively simple but brilliant strategy called counter-illumination. Many midwater fish hunt by looking upward, searching for the silhouettes of prey against the faint glow filtering down from the surface. So their potential prey evolved a solution: erase the silhouette. Lanternfish and many squid species have rows of light organs called photophores along their bellies. By adjusting the intensity of these lights to match the faint downwelling light, they make themselves nearly invisible when viewed from below. Some species can even adjust the angle and color of their glow to account for the time of day or depth, maintaining perfect camouflage regardless of conditions. Still others use light for communication in ways we're only beginning to understand. Certain deep-sea squid flash patterns that may serve as signals to attract mates, coordinate hunting, or establish territories. The Hawaiian bobtail squid has a light organ in its mantle that it uses to hide from predators at night, not by blending into darkness, but by blending into moonlight. The squid can adjust its glow to precisely match the brightness of moonlight filtering through the water, effectively becoming invisible against the night sky when viewed from below. And then there are the creatures that use bioluminescence as a burglar alarm. When threatened by a predator, they don't flee into darkness. They flash brightly, sometimes releasing clouds of glowing particles. The theory here is elegant. By suddenly illuminating both itself and its attacker, the prey hopes to attract an even larger predator that might eat them both. It's a desperate strategy. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me, but apparently effective enough that it evolved multiple times. Perhaps the most alien use of bioluminescence belongs to the ostracod, a tiny crustacean that produces glowing clouds of mucus when disturbed. From a distance, these clouds look like bioluminescent phytoplankton. But look closer, and they form patterns, spirals, wheels, and other shapes that researchers believe might be species-specific signals. Some male ostracods put on elaborate light shows, creating glowing patterns to attract females. It's like a light show at a concert, except the performer is smaller than a grain of rice, and the stage is the infinite darkness of the ocean. Here's a detail most people find surprising. Most ocean bioluminescence glows blue or blue-green. There's a scientific reason. These are the wavelengths of light that travel farthest through water. Red light, with its longer wavelength, is absorbed quickly, barely penetrating past the surface. This is why many deep-sea animals are bright red in color. In an environment where red light doesn't exist, being red is effectively the same as being invisible. They appear black in the blue glow of bioluminescence, vanishing perfectly into the darkness. But not all bioluminescence happens in the deep. On certain beaches around the world, Mosquito Bay in Puerto Rico, parts of the Maldives, coastlines in California, the surf glows electric blue at night. This phenomenon comes from dinoflagellates, single-celled organisms that flash when disturbed. Walk along the beach, and your footsteps leave glowing prints. Stir the water with your hand, and trails of blue light swirl in your wake. The reason for this behavior isn't entirely certain, though researchers have proposed that the flash may startle predators or attract their predators, creating a biological alarm system. It's a guess based on what we observe, but the exact evolutionary pressure remains a mystery. Right now, somewhere in the deep Pacific, the ocean is lit by thousands of glowing bodies. Jellyfish pulse, squid flash, tiny copepods twinkle like stars. And far below, in trenches where the pressure would crush most submarines, creatures we've never seen are creating light from chemistry alone. painting the darkness with biology's answer to the sun. Let's descend deeper still, to the deepest point in the ocean, the Challenger. Deep in the Mariana Trench, reaching nearly 11,000 meters below the surface. At that depth, the pressure exceeds 1,000 times. Atmospheric pressure at sea level. It's enough to crush most submarines instantly. And yet fish live there. Shrimp, amphipods. Even microorganisms flourish in sediments where the entire weight of the ocean presses down. How is this possible? Evolution has equipped these organisms with remarkable adaptations. Some have developed special proteins that remain stable under extreme pressure. These barophiles, pressure-loving organisms, don't just tolerate crushing forces. Many require them. Their bodies are mostly water, which is far less compressible than air, allowing them to maintain their shape, even at depths that would turn air-filled tissue into pulp. But perhaps nowhere in the deep is life more surprising than at hydrothermal vents. These are cracks in the ocean floor where seawater seeps down into the crust, gets superheated by magma below, and erupts back into the ocean laden with minerals and chemicals. The water emerging from these vents can exceed 400 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt lead. When hydrothermal vents were first discovered in 1977 during an expedition to the Galapagos Rift, scientists expected lifeless desert. The deep sea was thought to be mostly barren, sustained only by sparse marine snow drifting down from above. But when the submersible Alvin's lights illuminated the area around the first vent, the crew saw something that shouldn't exist. Oases teeming with bizarre creatures found nowhere else on Earth. Giant tube worms, over 2 meters long, their blood-red plumes waving in the current. Eyeless shrimp clustered by the thousands. Pale crabs. Ghostly fish. According to the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, over 300 new species have been discovered at hydrothermal vents since that first expedition. But here's what makes these ecosystems truly revolutionary. They don't depend on sunlight. On land and in the sunlit ocean, nearly all life ultimately relies on photosynthesis. Energy from the sun captured by plants or phytoplankton forms the base of the food chain. But at hydrothermal vents, there is no light. None has reached these depths in millions of years. Instead, microorganisms harvest energy from chemicals in the vent fluid, particularly hydrogen sulfide, through a process called chemosynthesis. According to a 2000 study published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, these chemosynthetic bacteria and archaea form the base of the food chain at vents, completely replacing the role that photosynthetic organisms play elsewhere. Many vent animals have formed intimate partnerships with these bacteria. Giant tube worms, which have no mouth or digestive system, host chemosynthetic bacteria in a specialized organ called a trophosome. The worm absorbs hydrogen sulfide and oxygen from the water, transports them to the bacteria through specialized blood proteins that prevent self-poisoning, and the bacteria produce organic compounds that nourish the worm. It's a partnership so complete that neither organism can survive without the other. These vents also host extremophiles that push the boundaries of what we thought life could tolerate. Hyperthermophiles thrive at temperatures above 90 degrees Celsius. One species, Methanopyrus candeleri, can divide at 122 degrees Celsius, according to Smithsonian research, the highest temperature known to support any form of life. Scientists increasingly suspect that hydrothermal vents may hold clues to life's origin on Earth. The conditions at alkaline vents, warm, mineral-rich water mixing with colder seawater, create natural gradients in temperature, pH, and chemistry. These gradients could have driven the chemical reactions necessary to form the first organic molecules, and eventually the first cells. Some researchers hypothesize that life may have originated not in shallow pools warmed by sunlight, as Darwin speculated, but in the warm darkness of these vents, where energy flowed not from the sun, but from Earth itself. If this hypothesis proves correct, it suggests something profound. Life could begin anywhere similar conditions exist. On Europa, Jupiter's moon, where a liquid ocean may lie beneath miles of ice. On Enceladus, Saturn's moon, which shoots water geysers into space. Wherever there's liquid water, an energy source, and the right chemistry, life might find a way. We're alone in this possibility, but only for now. The same forces that created life here might be operating on distant worlds we haven't yet explored. Let's rise now from the crushing depths back toward the surface, into the realm of sound. Close your eyes for a moment and picture the ocean. What do you hear? Most people imagine silence, perhaps the muffled roar of waves if you're near the surface. But beneath those waves, the ocean hums with acoustic life. In water, sound travels nearly 5 times faster than in air, roughly 1,500 meters per second. And because water is denser, sound waves face less resistance, traveling vast distances without fading. According to research from Cornell University using US Navy underwater microphones, whales have been documented communicating with each other over thousands of miles of ocean. Thousands of miles. Humpback whales create what scientists call songs, long, complex patterns of repeating phrases called themes. These aren't random noises. They have structure, like music. A single song can last 10 to 20 minutes, sometimes longer, and males will sing the same song repeatedly for hours. But here's what's remarkable. These aren't solo performances. Males in a population share these themes, though individuals may arrange them in slightly different orders, or add their own flourishes, like jazz musicians improvising on a shared melody. And the songs evolve. Over the course of a breeding season, new phrases creep in, old ones disappear, and somehow, all the males in a region gradually change their song in unison, adopting new themes while abandoning old ones. There's no rehearsal, no visible communication, no whale conductor signaling when to switch. It just happens, as if the population shares a collective musical memory that updates itself in real time. Scientists still don't fully understand the mechanism behind this coordinated cultural shift. But in the early 2000s, researchers began noticing something even more extraordinary. A song revolution that started among humpback whales off Australia's east coast didn't stay there. The new songs spread westward to Australia's west coast, then jumped across thousands of kilometers of open ocean to reach French Polynesia. Then they kept going. By carefully tracking whale songs recorded across the South Pacific over multiple years, researchers documented an unprecedented cultural transmission. Songs created by humpback whales on the east coast of Australia traveled across the Pacific Ocean, first to French Polynesia, over 6,000 kilometers away, then continuing eastward to breeding grounds off Ecuador. The total distance exceeded 14,000 kilometers, or about 8,700 miles. The songs took several years to make this journey, spreading gradually as populations encountered each other during migrations between feeding and breeding grounds. This isn't migration, it's cultural exchange. According to a 2022 study published in Royal Society Open Science, this represents a circumpolar southern hemisphere cultural transmission of whale songs, a vocal culture rivaled in its geographic extent only by humans. Preliminary research off the coasts of Brazil and South Africa suggests these songs might eventually travel the entire globe, circumnavigating the planet through whale populations that pass songs like viral hits, each group adding their own variations before passing them along. Imagine that for a moment. A song composed by a whale off Sydney, Australia, eventually being sung by a completely different population off Ecuador, South America, years later, and thousands of miles away, with whales in between serving as the transmission network. By the time the song returns to its origin, if it does, it will have evolved beyond recognition. like a game of telephone played across an entire ocean using melodies instead of words. This suggests whales possess something we rarely attribute to animals: culture. Not instinct, not hardwired behavior, but learned traditions passed between individuals and populations, evolving over time. When a young male humpback learns to sing, he's not just making noise. He's learning his population's current song, participating in a tradition that stretches back through generations of whales, potentially over decades or centuries. Blue whales speak in the deepest voices on Earth. Their calls can drop below 20 Hz, frequencies too low for human ears to detect. These infrasonic rumbles travel through the ocean like seismic waves. Some researchers have reported that certain low-frequency notes from humpback whale songs can travel up to 10,000 miles without losing significant energy, particularly when conducted through deep ocean sound channels. Before the Industrial Revolution, when the ocean was quieter, communication ranges may have been even greater. But according to a 2025 Oceana study, ship noise pollution has significantly reduced whale communication distances. Underwater noise levels have increased by more than 12 decibels since the mid-20th century due to commercial shipping, military sonar, and seismic surveys. For animals that rely on sound to find food, navigate, and attract mates, this rising noise is profoundly disruptive. Dolphins use sound in two distinct ways, according to Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution research. First, echolocation. Rapid clicks that bounce off objects and return as echoes, creating sonic pictures of their surroundings so precise they can distinguish between objects of slightly different sizes in total darkness. Second, social whistles. Each dolphin develops a unique signature whistle early in life, essentially an acoustic name. When researchers play back a dolphin's own signature whistle, the dolphin responds, turning toward the sound just as you might when someone calls your name across a crowded room. Sperm whales communicate in patterns of clicks that researchers are now analyzing using artificial intelligence. Project SETI, reported in The New Yorker in 2023, is using machine learning to analyze thousands of hours of recordings, searching for patterns that might constitute a phonetic alphabet. Early results suggest sperm whale communication may be far more structured and sophisticated than previously understood, though researchers caution that much work remains before any conclusions can be drawn. Right now, somewhere in the Pacific, a humpback is singing. In the Arctic, a bowhead calls through ice. And across vast distances, invisible threads of sound connect creatures who will never meet but can still, perhaps, hear each other's voices across the dark. The ocean doesn't sit still. It flows in massive rivers that dwarf anything on land, driven by differences in temperature and salinity. Scientists call this system thermohaline circulation, from the Greek words for heat and salt. It's sometimes called the global conveyor belt, and it plays a crucial role in climate stability that most people never see or think about. Here's how it works. In polar regions, particularly the North Atlantic near Greenland, seawater becomes very cold. As ice forms on the surface, it leaves salt behind, making the remaining liquid water saltier and denser. According to NOAA research, this cold, salty water becomes so dense that it sinks to the ocean floor in a process called deep water formation. Once at the bottom, it begins flowing toward the equator along the seafloor. As this cold water moves south, warmer surface water must flow north to replace it. This creates a vast circulation loop connecting all the world's oceans. Water that sinks in the North Atlantic travels south, curves around Antarctica, and flows northward into the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Eventually, after centuries, it rises back to the surface through upwelling, warms, and begins its journey back toward the Atlantic. Researchers estimate this full circuit takes approximately 1,600 years to complete. 1,600 years. Water molecules that sank when the Roman Empire was at its height are only now beginning to rise again in the Pacific. This circulation transports enormous amounts of heat. The thermohaline circulation in the Atlantic alone moves roughly 15 million cubic meters of water per second. For comparison, all the world's rivers combined discharge about 1 million cubic meters per second into the oceans. This flow carries warm water from the tropics toward the poles and brings cold water back toward the equator, moderating global temperatures and making much of the planet habitable. The Gulf Stream and its continuation. The North Atlantic Drift are particularly important. They carry warm water northeastward toward Europe, releasing heat to the atmosphere. This is why Western Europe, despite lying at the same latitude as frigid parts of Canada, experiences relatively mild winters. London sits at roughly the same latitude as Calgary, yet London rarely sees heavy snow, while Calgary endures months of brutal cold. The difference is ocean currents delivering tropical heat thousands of miles north. But this system is changing. The 2021 report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change stated with high confidence that the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation is very likely to weaken over the 21st century due to climate change. As ice sheets melt, fresh water entering the North Atlantic reduces water density, potentially slowing deep water formation. Scientists don't predict an abrupt shutdown. Such changes would unfold over decades, but the effects could include regional submersion, cooling in parts of Europe, shifts in rainfall patterns, and significant impacts on marine ecosystems. Right now, deep in the Atlantic, cold water is sinking. In the Pacific, ancient currents are rising, and across the ocean, in flows too slow to see with the naked eye, water moves in patterns that have shaped civilizations, migration routes, and the habitability of entire continents. Let's drift now to warmer, shallower waters, where light still penetrates and life explodes into color. To coral reefs, structures so vast they're visible from space, so biodiverse they rival rainforests, and so intricate they're built entirely by animals so small most would fit on the head of a pin. Corals are animals, not plants, though they're often mistaken for rocks or vegetation. An individual coral polyp has a soft body, just a few millimeters across, with tentacles surrounding a central mouth. But polyps rarely live alone. Thousands or millions grow together in colonies, each genetically identical clone connected to its neighbors, secreting calcium carbonate to form hard external skeletons. Over time, these skeletons accumulate into the structures we recognize as reefs. The Great Barrier Reef, stretching over 20,300 kilometers along Australia's coast, is the largest structure ever built by living organisms. But coral polyps don't build reefs alone. They partner with microscopic algae called zooxanthellae that live inside their tissues. According to NOAA, this relationship is essential. The coral provides the algae with shelter and access to sunlight, while the algae photosynthesize and share up to 90% of the sugar energy the coral needs to survive. The algae also give corals their vibrant colors, the yellows, greens, purples, and blues. Without zooxanthellae, most corals are ghostly white. This partnership, while ancient and stable under normal conditions, is also fragile. When ocean temperatures rise beyond certain thresholds, even by just 1 or 2 degrees Celsius for extended periods, corals become stressed. In response, they expel their zooxanthellae in a process called coral bleaching. Without their algae, corals lose both color and their primary energy source. If temperatures return to normal quickly, the algae can return and the coral recovers. But if heat stress persists, bleached corals weaken, starve, and often die. NOAA reports that the 2014-2017 global coral bleaching event, the longest and most widespread on record, affected approximately 70% of coral reefs worldwide. Some reefs lost more than half their coral cover. The Great Barrier Reef alone experienced 3 mass bleaching events in just 5 years. Why do reefs matter beyond their beauty? Despite covering less than 1% of the ocean floor, coral reefs support approximately 25% of all marine species at some point in their life cycles. They serve as nurseries where young fish grow protected from predators. They protect coastlines from storms and erosion by absorbing wave energy. They support fishing industries and tourism worth tens of billions of dollars annually. And they're sources of chemical compounds being studied for potential medicines, including treatments for cancer, arthritis, and bacterial infections. Reefs are ecosystems built on cooperation at every level. Clownfish live among sea anemone tentacles that would paralyze or kill other fish, gaining protection while bringing food scraps the anemone can consume. The clownfish acquires immunity through a mucus coating that develops after gradually acclimating to the anemone's sting, a partnership so specific that different clownfish species pair with different anemone species. Cleaner shrimp and cleaner wrasses set up cleaning stations where larger fish line up, sometimes dozens at a time, waiting their turn for parasite removal. These cleaners will even swim into the mouths and gill chambers of predators that could easily eat them, and the predators tolerate it because the cleaning service provides genuine health benefits. Research has shown that fish with access to cleaning stations have fewer infections and parasites, grow larger, and live longer. Parrotfish, those brightly colored herbivores that seem to spend their days lazily munching on the reef, perform a crucial service. They scrape algae off coral using their beak-like teeth, preventing overgrowth that would otherwise smother the reef and block sunlight from reaching the zooxanthellae. But here's something most people don't know. Parrotfish don't just eat algae. They consume the entire surface layer of coral, grinding it up with powerful jaws and pharyngeal mills. What comes out the other end? Sand. White, powdery sand. A single large parrotfish can produce several hundred pounds of sand per year. Those beautiful white sand beaches in the Caribbean and Pacific, they're largely parrotfish waste. The ocean transforms coral and algae into paradise, one fish at a time. But the cooperation goes even deeper than what we can see. According to research published in the American Society for Microbiology's journal, MBO, corals host diverse communities of bacteria, archaea, viruses, and fungi collectively called the coral microbiome. These microscopic partners help corals resist disease by producing antibiotic compounds, assist with nutrient cycling, and may even help corals adapt to environmental stress. When corals bleach, their microbiome changes too, sometimes in ways that make recovery harder. Scientists are now exploring whether introducing beneficial microbes could help corals survive warming oceans, essentially, probiotics for reefs. And recent research has revealed something that borders on the uncanny. Reefs may have a form of collective intelligence, not consciousness as we understand it, but coordinated behavior that emerges from the interactions of millions of organisms. When a crown-of-thorns starfish, a coral predator, attacks one part of a succius reef, nearby corals begin increasing mucus production and chemical defenses even before the starfish reaches them. Information somehow spreads through the reef. Some researchers speculate this might happen through the coral microbiome, through chemical signals in the water, or even through the connected root-like structures of adjacent coral colonies. The reef isn't just a collection of organisms living near each other. It's more like a superorganism, a city where every resident depends on countless others, where information flows through channels we don't fully understand, and where the health of one part affects the whole. When one coral colony bleaches and dies, it doesn't just disappear. Its absence creates space for algae to grow, which changes water chemistry, which affects nearby corals, which changes the fish community, which affects the entire food web. The reef is a tightly interwoven fabric, and pulling one thread can unravel unexpected sections. This is why coral reef, Decline is so devastating. We're not just losing colorful underwater scenery. We're losing entire systems of cooperation that took millions of years to evolve. Partnerships so specific and intricate that once broken, they may never reassemble in quite the same way. Let's step back now, not just in space, but in time. Because the ocean has a history, a story billions of years long. Earth formed about 4.6 billion years ago from a disk of gas and dust around the young sun. In its earliest years, the planet was molten, volcanic, and constantly bombarded by asteroids and comets. But as Earth cooled, water vapor in the atmosphere began to condense. Rain fell, possibly for centuries or millennia, filling the lowest basins. Where did this water come from? Scientists have identified two main sources, and the contributions of each remain debated. First, volcanic outgassing. As magma reached the surface through volcanic eruptions, it released water vapor trapped in Earth's interior. Second, delivery from space. During a period called the Late Heavy Bombardment, occurring roughly between 4.1 and 3.8 billion years ago, according to radiometric dating of lunar samples, icy asteroids and comets from the outer solar system crashed into the inner planets. Current research suggests volcanic outgassing likely contributed the majority of Earth's water, possibly 60 to 80%, with the bombardment providing significant additional amounts. Evidence from ancient zircon crystals analyzed at the University of Wisconsin suggests liquid water may have existed on Earth as early as 4.4 billion years ago, remarkably soon after the planet's formation. By approximately 4 billion years ago, the first permanent oceans had likely formed. Those early oceans were not like today's. They were hot, acidic, and devoid of oxygen, but they contained dissolved minerals and chemicals. And at some point, in an environment that remains actively debated, simple organic molecules began organizing into structures that could grow, replicate, and evolve. Life began. The earliest life was simple, single cells without nuclei. But eventually, some cells developed the ability to photosynthesize. These cyanobacteria, sometimes called blue-green algae, released oxygen as a byproduct. For the first billion years or so, this oxygen didn't accumulate in the atmosphere. It reacted with dissolved iron in seawater, forming iron oxide, rust, that precipitated to the seafloor, creating the massive banded iron formations we mine today. But eventually, around 2.4 billion years ago, the ocean's available iron was exhausted. Oxygen began escaping into the atmosphere in an event called the Great Oxidation Event. To anaerobic organisms that had evolved in an oxygen-free world, this gas was poison. It caused a mass extinction. But for others, oxygen became a powerful new energy source through aerobic respiration, eventually enabling the evolution of complex multicellular life. The ocean remained life's sole home for billions of years. About 540 million years ago, during the Cambrian explosion, animal life diversified spectacularly in the seas. Fish evolved, arthropods, mollusks. Eventually, life ventured onto land. But even as organisms conquered terrestrial environments, the ocean remained foundational to all life on Earth, regulating climate, driving the water cycle, and supporting the base of global food webs. Today's ocean is the culmination of this deep history. Some water molecules in it may have cycled through countless forms: dinosaur blood, ancient ferns, glaciers, clouds, the first oceans themselves. Water doesn't disappear. It transforms, moves, and persists across geological time. The ocean also holds Earth's memory in another way. Sediments on the seafloor contain remains of organisms that lived, died, and sank over millions of years, creating archives of past climates and ecosystems. By analyzing the chemical composition of these sediments and the fossils they contain, scientists can reconstruct ocean temperatures, ice sheet extent, atmospheric carbon dioxide levels, and biological productivity Going back hundreds of millions of years, the ocean floor is a library, each layer a page documenting Earth's past. Right now, waves roll onto shores that didn't exist a million years ago. Currents flow through basins that were once dry land. And somewhere in the darkness, chemistry organizes itself in ways that echo the processes that gave rise to the first stirrings of life billions of years before. As you rest here now, breathing slowly, let yourself absorb what you've discovered. You've traced oxygen from microscopic gardeners, invisible to your eye. You've descended into darkness filled with living light. You've reached crushing depths where life defies every expectation. You've heard songs that travel thousands of miles underwater. You've traced invisible rivers that regulate planetary climate. You've explored cities built on cooperation between creatures separated by billions of years of evolution. And you've traveled back through deep time to when Earth was young and the first ocean formed. Through all of this, one truth has remained constant. You are not separate from this story. You never have been. The salt concentration in your blood, approximately 0.9%, closely matches the salinity of Earth's ancient oceans. Scientists believe this reflects the conditions in which early life evolved. Your cells still carry the chemical signature of the sea. The water making up roughly 60% of your body has cycled through oceans, clouds, rivers, and rain for billions of years. You are drinking and exhaling water molecules that have passed through dinosaurs, ferns, trilobites, and the first photosynthetic bacteria. Water connects all life across time. The oxygen in every breath likely came from marine organisms. The carbon in your bones and proteins was cycled through ocean chemistry. The food you eat, even far from any coast, depends ultimately on ocean systems that regulate climate and drive the water cycle that brings rain to farmlands. You are, quite literally, made of the ocean. And the ocean, in turn, is shaped by life, including yours. There's something deeply peaceful about recognizing this connection. In daily life, we often feel separate from nature, from each other, from the vastness of the planet and its deep history. But the ocean reveals that separation is largely an illusion. When you breathe, you participate in an exchange that began billions of years ago. When you drink water, you're consuming molecules that have journeyed through countless forms. You are not just on Earth. You are of Earth. The ocean is your ancestor, your partner, your ongoing support system. Tonight, as you rest, the ocean continues its ancient rhythms. Phytoplankton photosynthesize under moonlight in some regions, under blazing sun in others. Whales call through darkness. Corals extend polyps to feed. Currents flow along paths carved over millennia. And in the deepest trenches, at the edge of what life can endure, organisms glow, adapt, and thrive. You don't need to remember every detail you heard tonight. The point was never memorization. It was connection, wonder, recognition, letting yourself be part of something vast, ancient, and breathtakingly beautiful. The ocean doesn't ask anything of you tonight. It simply invites you to rest, knowing you're held by the same forces that hold every living thing that has ever existed on this blue world. If these explorations have helped you unwind, consider subscribing to the channel. It helps others find their way here too. And if you have topics you'd like us to explore, leave a comment. We're always listening. For now, let yourself settle completely. Let the ocean carry you in your mind. Let its rhythms become your rhythms. Breath like waves, slow and steady. Heartbeat like currents, deep and patient. And remember that beneath the stars, beneath the moon, pulling gently at tides, beneath the endless expanse of blue, covering most of our planet, the ocean is doing what it has always done, living, breathing, creating, adapting, enduring. And so are you. Sleep well, and thank you for drifting with us tonight.